Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the biological and psychological effects of 12 really common substances. We're going to be exposing the chemical illusions they create right inside our brains, breaking down exactly what happens from that very first hit all the way to the inevitable crash. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's actually start by challenging something most of us do literally every single morning. I mean, we always joke about needing our morning coffee to survive, right? But the reality behind that is just so much more fascinating. Because you see, chemicals don't actually give us energy or peace or happiness out of thin air. No, they just borrow it from our future selves. And to really understand how this whole chemical borrowing thing works, we're going to need a bit of a map.
So here's our agenda for today. First, the chemical illusion. Second, stimulants, the speed up. Third, depressants, the slowdown. Fourth, psychedelics, rewiring reality. And finally, number 5, the final cost.
All right, Section 1, the chemical illusion. Before we start looking at any specific chemicals, we really need to understand the universal journey that every substance takes your brain on. It's like a giant biological cycle, and it always starts with the onset. That's the trick where your brain begins to change. Then it hits the peak, which is the illusion itself, basically convincing you that you have infinite energy, or maybe perfect peace. But because this state is completely artificial, it always leads to the third step, the come down, or the crash. And finally, this leaves you in the withdrawal phase. This is the trap, the part that tricks your brain into thinking it absolutely needs the chemical just to feel normal again. Moving on to Section 2, stimulants, borrowing future energy. These are the substances that speed up your nervous system to create this really powerful illusion of infinite energy and control. You know, it is just fascinating how everyday stimulants manipulate us. Take caffeine, for instance. It travels up to your brain and actually blocks a chemical called adenosine, which, fun fact, is the exact chemical that tells your brain it's tired. So think about that. Caffeine doesn't actually give you energy at all. It just completely hides your exhaustion. And then we have nicotine. It hits the brain, releases this really quick surge of dopamine, but then it burns out fast. It leaves behind tension and this nagging craving for another hit. Nicotine doesn't actually relax you guys. It simply relieves the very withdrawal discomfort that your last puff created. It's literally a closed loop. So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding dopamine. It's the brain chemical responsible for making you feel calm, focused, content, and rewarded. And while everyday habits like vaping or smoking nicotine give you a tiny surge of it, dopamine is the primary fuel that much stronger stimulants just burn right through at an entirely unsustainable rate. When we look at really powerful stimulants like cocaine and methamphetamine, they quite literally flood your brain with dopamine. Cocaine actually blocks your body from reabsorbing it, which gives you this rush of pure invincibility, where suddenly every single thought you have feels utterly brilliant. Methamphetamine, that hits like a lightning bolt, flooding you with dopamine and adrenaline all at once. But here's the catch. Because your brain's reward system just burned through its entire fuel supply in one massive go, the subsequent come down just slams you into this exhausted, gray, paranoid reality. You only felt that infinite energy at the peak because you stole it directly from your future self. All right, on to Section 3, depressants, the false peace. These substances do the exact opposite of stimulants, purposely slowing down the brain to create an illusion of peace, warmth, and connection. Now, notice how alcohol, benzodiazepines, and opioids all manufacture this profound sense of safety, but they do it through slightly different mechanisms. Alcohol basically disrupts how your brain communicates with itself. It makes you feel super confident while actually slowing down your coordination. Benzodiazepines, or benzos, they enhance a brain chemical called GABA to forcefully slow down activity, and that creates this artificial calm that just silences your thoughts. And opioids, they attach to specific receptors to completely block pain, creating this heavy, deep calm that feels like ultimate, unshakable safety. Let's actually look a bit closer at alcohol, right? A drug consumed literally everywhere, at parties, dinners, you name it. At its peak, it seems like the absolute key to human connection. It quiets your racing thoughts, it makes the moment feel easy and fun. But the reality? It's a complete illusion. It's slowing your brain down while simultaneously convincing you that you're totally still in control. And the eventual hangover, that nasty brain chemistry crash, and the quiet, familiar dependency that creeps in, it slowly erodes your self-control. Over time, it fundamentally dulls the very things that make you human. And when it comes to depressants, opioids offer the ultimate illusion. I mean, the onset is described as sinking into the world's softest blanket. Physical pain and emotional stress just melt right away. But the brutal reality of the come down is genuinely terrifying. Opioid withdrawal doesn't just make you kind of want more of the drug, it entirely rewires your brain's baseline survival system. It teaches your brain that the drug is literally as essential as oxygen. Every single nerve screams in pain. It makes life absolutely, agonizingly unbearable without the drug.
Okay, Section 4, Psychedelics and Dissociatives, Rewiring Reality. Here, substances don't just speed up or slow down the brain, they completely rewrite your perception of reality itself. These substances alter your perception across a really vast spectrum. Take cannabis. It interacts with your endocannabinoid system, basically mimicking natural relaxation chemicals to distort normal reality into something, well, dreamy yet focused. Then there's MDMA, often taken at clubs and festivals. It forces this massive, temporary feeling of empathy by just flooding your brain with serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. But of course, it leaves you feeling totally emotionally drained once all that serotonin is burned up. And ketamine? That works by actively blocking sensory input, completely disconnecting your mind from your physical body, and detaching perception entirely into what users famously call the K-hole. The sheer power of true hallucinogens is absolutely staggering. I mean, we're talking about doses measured in literally microscopic amounts. Think about this. It takes only a single millionth of a gram of LSD, 1/1,000,000th, to completely rewire how your brain processes reality, dissolving your entire sense of self and making the walls and the world around you actually start breathing. Crazy, right?
Both LSD and psilocybin, which is the active compound found in magic mushrooms, they work by binding to serotonin receptors, specifically one called 5-HT2A, which shapes your perception and your mood. But the most fascinating thing here is that they don't necessarily show you anything inherently new. Rather, it's like they pull back the curtain on what's already sitting right there in your own mind. Your ego dissolves, time completely loses all meaning, but it's also entirely unpredictable. Depending entirely on your current mindset, the experience can be a journey of profound enlightenment, or it can be a descent into terrifying chaos. They basically open doors in the human mind that, well, don't always close very cleanly.
And that brings us to Section 5, the final cost. As we reach the end of our explainer today, we really have to look closely at the ultimate biological toll of all this chemical borrowing.
Because whether we're talking about stimulants, depressants, or psychedelics, we've seen this inescapable pattern emerge. And it forces us to ask this really fundamental biological question. Why does every single peak we've discussed today demand an inevitable, punishing crash? Like, why can't the brain just stay in that awesome state of euphoria or perfect calm forever?
Well, the answer all comes down to one crucial concept: homeostasis. This is your brain's absolute, relentless pursuit of balance. You see, your survival system is constantly, 24/7, monitoring your baseline. So when you artificially flood it with outside chemicals to create an illusion, the brain violently adjusts to protect itself. It literally shuts down its own natural ability to produce joy, energy, or calm just to compensate for that massive flood of drugs. So that awful crash, it isn't an accident. It's actually just your brain frantically trying to survive the peak. Whether it's the quick dopamine hit of your morning vape, the heavy, numbing weight of an opioid pill, or the euphoric rush of a powerful stimulant, the devastating truth remains exactly the same. The warmth that these chemicals give you in that fleeting peak is exactly the same warmth they will eventually steal from your everyday reality.
Your brain is basically a master accountant, and every single borrowed peak eventually comes with a very steep biological interest rate. Now, if you want to keep feeding your brain with fascinating knowledge and do it without that inevitable come down, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and definitely hit that bell icon so you never miss an upload. I'll leave you with this final thought for today. Knowing exactly how this biological accounting works, what everyday illusions are you still borrowing from your future self?